Hello. Um, this is a list review, and it's for Robert. Robert, we've actually not met each other yet, but Robert is um, he's a player who came into the community in Denmark here in the last year. He's him and his friend Lucas. Um, are playing Bold Action as well as other games, I believe. Traitors. Um, and he has not had enough time to join us at any of the tournaments yet, but I think he has the intention to. And he sent me a list here, which was inspired by One Bridge Too Far, the best war movie ever made, in my view. Um, So I'm going to talk you through the lists, and maybe we can talk about the ideas behind it. I think it's a 12 50-point list, so a lot of points in the list. So you really have enough for all the toys, but it's only 15 order dice, and if there was one thing that I saw in Scotland, as a competitive list, 15 order dice at 1250, it is rather low. I think most of our lists in Scotland were 16 to 21 order dice. That was the range band for 1250. For 1,000 points, I think like 12 to 15 is the range band that is good. But hey, I'm viewing everything competitively, so I think 15 order dice may be okay. And he does have some really hard units in this list. So what does he have? He has an inexperienced second lieutenant, cheap. I like it. He has 2x5 pairs with SMGs and 3x6 pairs with rifles. Now, for me, these para units are quite small. But there's a point to having these small units, which is he's running them in Bren carriers. So like the SMG units, they would work fine in the Bren carriers, I think. But you could also, Robert, run other stuff in your Bren carriers. You could put your lieutenant in a Bren carrier and your flamer in the other, and then run them up. Maybe you would want your lieutenant to be regular then, because as an inexperienced, he will fire the pintle mounted at -1. It is at least an idea that you could run him in, because you want your paras to go out and kill stuff, right? You want to ride them up and they get out and then shoot something to bits with their 10 shots from their SMGs, right? But you could use other stuff to do that with, flamers being a favorite, right? The the 6-man para units with rifles, as a defensive unit, they're strong enough. They really are. 6 veterans in cover, going down if something nasty shoots at them. They should work well. Not as an offensive unit. It's not. 6 paras are not units that can move up and close combat something off an objective, for instance. So this list is more of a counterpunch list, in that you do other stuff first and then your infantry moves up. It's not a list where the infantry does the work itself. So that was the infantry. A regular sniper, a medium mortar, very favorite of the Danish meta, I think. A flamer, regular, I assume. 2 Bren carriers with pintle-mounted LMGs. I think I'm going to make a video explaining how to use Bren carriers, because that is also an interesting bit. They're really, really good. they're really good. They're cheap for their points. They can split fire, so the pintle mounted gets you in one direction and the hull mounted in the other, making them able to do double pins. Perfect. So I like the brain carriers, and we see a lot, like these last few years, we've seen a lot of lists that are sort of brain carrier spam lists, where they have 2 or more brain carriers in the list, making them sort of tank lists, because the brain carrier is a sort of very light tank. And with the SMG pairs in the brain carriers, the enemy will be hesitant to charge you, because you can charge an open-topped vehicle and successfully kill it. But the pairs will get out and defend it, and they're a tough fighter because they have SMGs and they're stubborn, and you get the picture, right? They're not a nice unit to encounter in close combat. There's a Jeep. I'm guessing to put the flamer in it. That's always a good idea, to like throw up the flamer in a Jeep and then get out and flame something, kill it. Although quite often you will be trading dice for dice, right? An AEC 3 armored car. I don't like the AAC. A lot of other competitive players do. I prefer the Stackhound. I guess it's a matter of taste. I like the idea that you can split fire, which you can do with the Stackhound. You can't with the AEC. But the AEC is a tank in its own right, and it has a medium anti-tank gun, if I remember correctly, which is very good. So it's a good tank hunter, actually. It's something that can easily drive up the flank and get into the side shots of a heavier tank and take it out. So yeah. And then he has a Firefly, a Sherman Firefly for the final one. The Firefly is way too expensive. It's for the British and American lists, the Firefly is way too expensive. And playing around with heavy tanks is fun, yes. Not very competitive in a points for value setting. But it is very good. If you can hit with that main gun, it is very good. But very, very, very expensive, right? So, that's the list. Are there things that I would change to make it more competitive? Yes, there are. I would run the pairs in larger groups of 8. With SMGs, because you want them up close to the enemy. They really shine because they have stubborn. So, and do you really need the rifle pairs for sitting on objectives? I don't think you do. So maybe cut them down to 4 groups and make them 8-man groups instead, if you have those points. I would also consider maybe running the flamer in one of the Bren carriers and maybe an engineer group in the other, because then you have 2 flamers in your list. And they can erase units. And the good thing about running them in Bren carriers is that they can go through terrain when they do that, and don't have to go around it with the Jeeps. So you can save the Jeep. You could also consider running the Stackhound instead of your AEC armored car. Again, matter of taste and what you have in your collection. Competitively, I would cut out the Firefly. Save the points, take something cheaper, preferably with more DACA. But again, it is a matter of whether you want to run a friendly list, a fun list, or a competitive list. I'm sorry about all the noise. I have a lot of students walking around in here now. Yeah. Should you remove some paras for a Piat team? I don't think so. I think you have enough anti-tank in your Flamer and your AEC and your Firefly. You have definitely got enough anti-tank. And these anti-tank guns can engage, as you yourself point out, Robert, can engage infantry quite successfully because they have HE. Yeah, so that works. And I don't think that the medic is worth the points. Basically, he's a cheap order dice, but he's not something that will help you a lot. So I would run with the engineer teams and go that route instead. And then groups of 8 of the pairs. 6 is okay. 8 is better for up close and personal, which is where I think they should be. That was my review of your list. Cheers.